When you think of the word optimism, who pops into your head? Probably not someone who lived their entire life without sight or sound. But that is exactly why we need to explore the profound, and let's be honest, radical philosophy of optimism from one of history's most unlikely advocates, Helen Keller. So, where are we getting all this from? Well, our guide for this explainer is a really powerful essay Keller wrote herself, way back in 1903. And this is so important because we're not just pulling inspirational quotes off a coffee mug here. We're digging into a deep, structured argument from the mind of an absolutely brilliant thinker.
And that really brings us to the central question, doesn't it? The big paradox that drives her whole philosophy. A question that kind of makes you check your own ideas about what it takes to be happy.
Okay, so to really get her philosophy, we have to go back to the beginning. Her optimism wasn't born in some easy, comfortable life. No, it was forged in the most profound darkness you can possibly imagine. Just listen to these words from Keller herself. They describe her life before her teacher, Anne Sullivan, arrived. It's just a chilling picture of total isolation, a world with no light, no sound, and no connection to anyone. She talks about this time as being trapped, just beating herself against an empty wall that cut her off from all of humanity. Think about it. No past to remember, no future to look forward to, just a silent, dark, endless present. But then, everything changes, and the shift is just so dramatic. When her teacher arrived, it wasn't just about learning the alphabet. She calls it love setting her soul free. For Helen Keller, knowledge itself was the sunrise, and it brought hope and joy right along with it. So here's the key takeaway from her experience. This wasn't some slow, gradual awakening. She calls it a leap from bad to good. The instant she understood her first word, she was rushed from absolute nothingness into connection. That single, powerful experience became the very foundation of her entire worldview.
All right, so now we see the personal foundation. Let's look at how she built a whole philosophy on top of it. And this part is crucial, because it shows her optimism was anything but naive. It was a carefully built philosophy designed for a world that's full of suffering.
In fact, you might be surprised to hear that Keller really disliked superficial, cheerful optimism. She completely distrusted anyone who just ignores all the world's problems and pretends that everything's fine.
She had this incredible metaphor for it. An optimism that hasn't faced reality, that hasn't counted the cost of suffering and evil, is just weak. I mean, how perfect is that? It's fragile. It's going to collapse the second things get tough.
And you can see the sharp contrast right here. On one hand, you have that false optimism. It's passive. It just looks away. But Keller's version, it's the total opposite. It's active. It demands that you look directly at sorrow and understand evil, because that's the only way you can build a faith that's actually strong. And this right here is the absolute heart of her argument. For her, struggle isn't an obstacle to being an optimist. It's a necessary ingredient. She believed you can't really, truly appreciate the light unless you've known the dark. Real strength isn't built by avoiding pain, but by using it to get a deeper understanding of the world. Okay, so if real optimism means you have to face the struggle, then how do you actually do that? That brings us to the practical how-to part of her philosophy. And for Keller, the answer was crystal clear: work.
Now, she got this idea from a philosopher named Thomas Carlyle. He had this gospel of work, which basically says that it's through doing things, through creating and laboring, that we bring some order to the chaos of the world, and just as importantly, to our own minds. And Carlyle's creed, which Keller just totally ran with, can be broken down into these actionable steps. First, organize yourself. Stop being chaos. Become a world. Second, produce something. Third, work on your ideals. And through that process, you find freedom and purpose. And here's where she brings it all home, right back to her own life. This is her proof. In spite of every single limitation, the simple, profound fact that she can work is the reason she remains an optimist. And what's so cool about this idea is that the size of the job doesn't matter. The world changes, she says, because of the aggregate of tiny pushes from everybody. She even points out that Darwin built his world-changing theories in diligent half hours. The real value is in the act of contributing itself, no matter how small it seems. So let's bring this all together. In this final section, we're going to see that for Helen Keller, optimism wasn't a mood she was in or some part of her personality.
No, it was a profound, daily commitment. It was a faith.
This is her own definition, and it is just perfectly clear. Notice the two essential parts. First, a glad belief that good wins out over evil. And second, a willing effort to work with that good. It's belief plus action. That's the formula.
I mean, just listen to this statement. It is so incredibly powerful. This isn't just passively wishing for things to be good. It's a declaration. She's arguing that when you choose to see the good and you act on that belief, you actually make it stronger. You literally shape your reality with your conviction.
And that brings us to her ultimate conclusion. She takes this whole philosophy and elevates it from just a mindset to a core spiritual practice. It's not just an outlook for her, it is a religion.
So at the end of the day, Keller's whole life and her philosophy leave us with this really big question. A question for our own lives, right here, right now. If she's right, if optimism isn't a condition you're born with, but a choice you make and an action you take, then what are we choosing to build?